This man is responsible for over 120 burglaries, 50 rapes, and 13 murders. Our story begins on November 8th, 1945 in Bath, New York, where Kathleen and Joseph D'Angelo welcomed a baby boy. They named him Joseph James D'Angelo Jr. after his Joseph Sr. Joseph Sr. was a sergeant in the US Army, which meant the family had to move around with him. It's reported during this time that Joseph Jr. actually witnessed one of his sisters being sexually assaulted by a couple of airmen in a warehouse. One of those sisters reported that Joseph Sr. was very abusive to Joseph Jr. in his childhood. It said during his childhood he committed minor burglaries, but mostly just ransacking the place and even harming animals. The same year he received his GED, he joined the US Navy and served in the Vietnam War for almost 2 years. Once he left, he went to college for police science and did exceptionally well. During his time there, however, he met a girl. Her name was Bonnie. Bonnie broke it off because Joseph threatened her with a gun, all because she didn't want to marry him. Joseph served as an officer on the burglary unit and married a woman named Sharon Huddle in Placer, California, sort of near Sacramento. So a lot of big things were happening for Joseph. He got married, started working his dream job, he had a little side hobby. Around this time, there were a lot of burglaries happening, but it wasn't like an average burglary where the most expensive stuff was taken. It was like random stuff. Rearranging bookshelves, maybe stealing like 50 bucks from a piggy bank. The thing that really gets me is that this dude would take one earring out of a pair, someone's freaking stamp collection. However, he also stole weapons and ammo. This guy once broke into 12 houses in one day. He clearly was bored and had some time on his hands. Plus, working as a cop gave him a lot of practice. That is, until he was fired. After his suspension, he started stalking the police chief, threatening to kill him. And the thing is, this guy was really good at getting away. He always made sure to pick houses next to a good getaway area, such as parks, ditches, pathways, and he always liked to be secure once he was inside the home. So he placed dishes or glass bottles on door handles, so if they were removed, the glass would shatter, he'd hear the warning and just escape. Up until 1975, none of these break-ins were violent or resulted in a death, but that would all change. On September 11th, 1975, Joseph was out doing yet another ransacking. This time, he was outside Claude Snelling's home. Claude was a 45-year-old journalism professor who had caught Joseph peering into his daughter's windows twice before. Joseph entered the Snelling home, and around 2 a.m., Beth Snelling woke up by having a gun waved in her face, threatening to kill her if she made a sound and that she needed to come with him. Claude heard this and ran out to the carport where Joseph pointed a gun at her head. He fired twice at Claude and pointed it towards Beth. He didn't fire, but beat her before running off. Her testimony video from 2020 is so powerful. I highly recommend you watch it. So now the police have to start taking this person seriously. Before, it was just constant break-ins. Now that there are lives at stake, he's clearly getting bolder and is willing to shoot. On December 12, 1975, an officer fired a warning shot at the masked intruder, which got him to freeze. But Joseph pulled out a revolver, shooting it at the flashlight near the cop's face. He was able to get away before anyone could apprehend him. But guess what he dropped before he left? A flashlight, stamps, and a sock filled with coins. It's like your starter pack at the beginning of a video game. Unfortunately, these wouldn't stay break-ins for very long. They escalated to sexual assault. In around 1976, Joseph and his wife moved to the Sacramento area, and in the neighboring towns, crime started to ramp up. He would jaunt around middle-class neighborhoods, scouting out houses, looking in windows, trying to figure out the perfect place to break in and ransack. What's worse is that Joseph would stalk people for months, figuring out their routines, even calling them up months before ever breaking into the home. He would even enter their homes while they were out, unlock doors and windows, and plant secret items around the house, things for him to use when he broke in, like for real. When Joseph started out, he would target young women with children. He steered clear of couples at first because he didn't want to deal with the men. Eventually, this changed due to media reports. The news reported that he had a type, and after that, he switched up his tactics. He began targeting the homes of couples. He would sneak in, blind his victims with a flashlight, and freak them out by waving a gun in front of their face. Joseph would force the women to tie up her partner. Then he would place a stack of dishes on top of their back. He threatened that if they tried to move, the dishes would fall and he would kill everyone in the house. And then he would repeatedly sexually assault the women. If this wasn't horrible enough, this guy would make himself at home. He'd make himself a snack, hang around and relax, harm the people inside the home however many times he wanted, and then he would just bounce. Sometimes the victims would have no idea that he was still there after a few hours had passed, but he would lurk in the shadows just to scare them. This guy got a kick out of seeing frightened people. He was seen multiple times because the amount of police sketches of this man is astounding, but he always managed to get away because he was making good use of his surroundings. He had a lot of nicknames at this point, such as Visalia Ransacker, East Area Rapist, and the East Side Rapist, because this guy was going literally everywhere. He traveled up and down and all around Sacramento, San Joaquin, Stanislaus, Yolo, and Contra Costa counties, committing over 50 rapes until around July of 1979. But after doing this for so long, he got bored. Becoming a serial killer is the next logical step, right? He had already killed a few people at this point. A couple walking their dog in the Rancho Cordova area encountered the East Area Rapist. They fled the situation but were chased down and both shot. After a while, he moved down to Southern California and continued causing mayhem. He was called the original Night Stalker because Richard Ramirez had pretty much stolen the Night Stalker name from him. On October 1st, 1979, Joseph D'Angelo broke into the home of a couple, but the woman screamed, scaring him off. He got away on a bicycle as a neighbor tried to chase him down. Joseph abandoned the bike, dropping a blade, twine for tying up the victims, and leaving behind shoe prints. Joseph D'Angelo would continue the same routine on and off until 1986. In March of 1980, another couple aged 33 and 43 were attacked, assaulted, and brutally murdered in their Ventura home. In August of 1980, a couple in their late 20s received the same fate, bludgeoned to death, but no murder weapon was found. In February of 1981, a 28-year-old woman was assaulted and bludgeoned in her Irvine home. A TV was found outside, believed in making it look like a robbery had gone wrong. In late July of 1981, a couple in their late 20s, early 30s were attacked in their home after Joseph D'Angelo snuck in through a bathroom window. They were bludgeoned to death as well. Joseph took a short break between 1981 and 1986 before striking again. This final time, he broke into a home of an 18-year-old girl while her family was on vacation in Mexico. For a short time, he was called the Diamond Knot Killer because he used the same intricate knot style to bind his victims. This man terrorized California for a long frickin' time. He committed over 100 burglaries, 50 rapes, and 13 murders. And this is just what we know of. And I have a sneaking suspicion that if he could do it for that long, the list of victims is probably longer than we know. He would constantly move around, and because of the lack of DNA technology at the time, they couldn't piece together the crimes happening all across the state. So nothing could really be done about it unless he was caught in the act. So for a long time, the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker cases were never seen as the same person. This guy traveled hundreds of miles across California, so pinpointing him proved to be a little tricky. And with different jurisdictions covering their share, things can get lost in translation very easily. That is until DNA technology started making moves, people. And in 2001, DNA evidence was tested from the crime scene where Joseph snuck in through the bathroom, connecting that suspect and the East Area Rapist. They were the same person. And at that point, the investigators working on this essentially cold case started freaking out a little bit. Now they have something to go off of. Through the use of an online DNA ancestry database, investigators found family members linked to Joseph D'Angelo all the way from the 1800s. And how did they do this? From using a rape kit that had been stored in Ventura County. After a few months, investigators were able to weed out every suspect on their list, besides Joseph James D'Angelo. Less than a week before Joseph was arrested, investigators collected DNA samples from Joseph's car door and a used tissue. They came back as a direct match to the Golden State Killer's profile. On April 24th, 2018, Joseph was arrested in Sacramento, charged with 8 counts of first-degree murder. He received 4 additional counts from the county of Santa Barbara. Due to the statute of limitations, Joseph couldn't be charged for any of the burglaries or rapes he committed, even though he did it in the hundreds of times. But on August 21, 2020, Joseph D'Angelo received multiple life sentences with no possibility of parole. After days of listening to victim impact statements, because this man had a lot of victims, he gave a weak little apology. Now he's in custody at the California State Prison, where he'll probably live out the rest of his days if he isn't transferred. This man truly had the biggest double life I've ever seen. He was a police officer, a veteran, and he had a wife and kids, but managed to terrorize people for over 2 decades without anyone suspecting a thing. Thank God for technology, because some of those people would walk away with no punishment without it. And that, my friends, is the story of possibly one of the scariest men to ever live, Joseph James DeAngelo. Guys, thank you so much for watching another episode of Killer Bites. My name is Mack. Now, until next time, stay safe out there, my friends.